Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to explore the hidden, completely high-stakes battleground taking place inside literally every single barrel and bottle of wine you own. You know, if you think winemaking is just about crushing some grapes and letting nature take its course, well, you're in for a massive surprise.
Okay, let's just dive right into it. Wine isn't just some static drink sitting peacefully in your glass. It's actually a living, breathing, totally dynamic ecosystem. And like any ecosystem, it's constantly at risk of being overthrown by microscopic invaders. So that beautiful red liquid we're looking at, it's essentially highly contested territory.
To really understand the stakes here, just imagine this. You've saved a beautiful, super expensive bottle of wine for a special occasion. You pop the cork, pour a glass, take a deep breath to take in all those wonderful fruit aromas, and instead, you get the unmistakable, super pungent scent of a barnyard, or literally horse sweat. No thanks, right? But that is the terrifying reality of a microbial war lost.
Section 1. The Microscopic Battlefield. Defending the sip. So what exactly is the winemaker defending? Well, the goals here are highly specific. We absolutely have to control these microbes first and foremost to preserve those lovely, characteristic aromas and flavors of the grape. But it's also highly visual. We need to maintain absolute clarity and prevent any muddying or turbidity caused by suspended particles. Chemically, the winemaker is basically fighting to stop the production of undesirable compounds, like acetic acid, which makes wine taste like straight vinegar, or butyric acid, which literally smells rancid. And finally, they're fighting to prevent premature oxidation, because that can completely mute the wine's vibrant flavors. Moving on to Section 2, Heroes and Villains, the cast of characters. Meet our primary hero, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. You probably know it as baker's or brewer's yeast. This is the highly desirable organism that totally thrives between 15 and 30 degrees Celsius. Think of it as the engine of the entire operation, magically turning the glucose and fructose in the grape must into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Honestly, without our hero, there is no wine. The whole shebang falls apart. But lurking in the shadows of the winery is our main villain, Brettanomyces, or as it's commonly known in the industry, simply Brett. Brett is a stubborn, incredibly persistent survivor. And what makes Brett so dangerous is that it can thrive even with very low nutrients. It survives in moderate alcohol levels, and worse, it has a high resistance to the exact preservatives winemakers use to stop it. This right here brilliantly illustrates the clash. Our hero, Saccharomyces, wants to ferment sugars to create a beautiful structure and elevate the wine. Meanwhile, our villain, Brett, wants to degrade those beneficial phenolic compounds, strip away the agent capacity, and basically completely mask the unique terroir of the region. They are locked in an absolute zero-sum game. Section 3. When wine goes bad, the spoilage threat. Okay, if Brett actually takes over, it unleashes a total sensory sabotage. We're talking horrific, volatile acids that assault your senses with tasting notes you never, ever want in your glass. Things like wet leather, medicinal varnish, rancid aromas, and literal horse sweat or barnyard odors. Yuck. Brett completely wipes out the true varietal character of the grape. But you know, Brett isn't the only threat out there. Molds are another terrifying enemy in this war. If molds get access to oxygen and humidity, say from some condensation inside the bottles or tanks, they launch an outright invasion. And they don't just make the wine taste like damp earth and mold, they actually change the chemical composition, like altering tartaric acid levels. Even more frightening, some molds can produce mycotoxins, which are genuinely toxic to humans, so it's a severe aesthetic and health risk. Now here is a fascinating twist for you. Even heroes fall. Surprisingly, if our hero yeast, Saccharomyces, gets stressed out, maybe by extreme temperatures or too much sulfur dioxide, it can completely go rogue. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a breakdown. It can cause a stuck fermentation, leaving unfermented sugar behind, or it can produce volatile sulfides. It can even produce diacetyl, which is this unwanted, heavily buttery flavor that totally ruins the profile of dry red and white wines. That brings us to Section 4, the winemaker's arsenal, tactical weapons. So, how do we fight back? Well, the winemaker's primary weapon is sulfur dioxide, or SO2. As you can see, its different chemical forms act as both antimicrobial and antioxidant shields. Basically, it penetrates the yeast cells, reacts with their enzyme systems, and just neutralizes them.
It also brilliantly inhibits enzymes like lactase that can severely alter those precious aromas.
But SO2 is incredibly tricky to use. It's a real double-edged sword. On the pro side, it's awesome because it allows winemakers to actively select between yeasts and lactic acid bacteria, plus it helps dissolve tannins and those lovely color-giving anthocyanins. But look at the cons. If a winemaker uses even a bit too much, it triggers bad odors, reduced smells, or even hydrogen sulfide and mercaptans, especially if there's no oxygen present. It literally requires absolute precision. Now, when SO2 just isn't enough, there's dimethyl dicarbonate, or DMDC. You can think of this as a rapid strike stabilizer. It's a colorless liquid weapon that's added right before bottling. It quickly inhibits fermentative yeasts so the wine doesn't accidentally re-ferment in the bottle, which would be a disaster. And the best part? It completely degrades into harmless, trace amounts of methanol and carbon dioxide in just 2 hours, leaving absolutely no sensory trace behind. Talk about a stealth weapon. Another brilliant tactical maneuver in this arsenal is chitosan. This is a game changer. It's a polymer, the same stuff making up the exoskeleton of crustaceans, but usually extracted from a specific fungus for winemaking, that literally hunts down our villain, Brett, in 2 steps. First, its positive charge acts like a magnet, attracting the negatively charged microbes. Then, it alters their cell membrane, killing them via osmotic shock. And amazingly, if the dose is right, it does all of this without hurting our hero, Saccharomyces. The arsenal also includes a few highly specialized tools. Take sorbic acid, specifically the non-toxic trans-trans isomer. It can be used, though it has to be added super slowly to avoid precipitating. Plus, fun fact, it's actually banned in some countries like Austria and Switzerland. Then we have short-chain fatty acids like octanoic and decanoic acids. Just a tiny 9 to 10 milligrams per liter can subtly halt alcoholic fermentation, which drastically reduces the need for heavy sulfur doses. Section 5. The delicate balance, winning the war. Ultimately, the winemaker must perfectly balance pH and temperature to decide their exact strategy. They have to decide, do they need a fungicidal strike, using a high dose of SO2 in a low pH environment to actively kill yeasts, or do they just need a gentle fungistatic hold, using a low dose at a higher pH simply to keep the yeast asleep and prevent growth. It is a total masterclass in chemistry. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. So the next time you pour yourself a crystal clear, beautifully aromatic glass of wine, just take a moment to look at it. Will you just taste the fruit, or will you now taste the incredible, unseen scientific war that was won just for you? Cheers to the heroes of the microscopic battlefield, and thanks so much for joining me today.